Thank you, Jennifer. All right, we've got a 1:04 in the afternoon. We're back on the record, if that pleases you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
The first thing we've got up is Arkansas Pharmacy Support Group. Eric, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you got with us.
Perfect. All right. I'm Eric Crumbaugh. I am the co-secretary of the Arkansas Pharmacy Support Group, along with Jennifer Kelly. And we're here to advocate for Dr. Towers to return back to practice. I will let him tell you a little bit about himself, but just from our perspective, he signed his contract on March the 15th of 2024. He has been an active participant in our group and done everything that we've asked him to do. And I'll just say an extra little nugget is he had a baby at pretty early. We have another gentleman in our group that his wife just delivered at 24 weeks, and Ty's been in contact with him, kind of sharing his experience, strength, and hope. And I think that's kind of, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So I'll let you go ahead and just introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah. So my name is Ty. I just want to first off say thank y'all for having me here. That I accept full responsibility for everything that has occurred. It's 100% my fault. I would like to apologize not only to the profession, the state, but also to my family and myself. I feel like I have a great plan in place with the support group, with my family, have a great support group there. I have a great sponsor who's been through this process as well. Have a really good support with my home group. And, I feel like I've done a lot of soul searching on myself, a lot of work on myself, and I don't ever plan on that to stop. So again, thank you all for having me here, and look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
We went ahead and passed out since Ty's a little bit different, that he'd had a hearing before the board previously, before he had entered support group. I knew you guys always ask us for a copy of that, so we've passed that out as part of your deliberation. I think, Ms. Bales, did you want to give a summary or anything?
So the board heard, we did an emergency hearing on Dr. Towers, then he appealed that. And we did a hearing in October of 2023. He was represented by Patrick Binka, and the board made the findings that you have in front of you. And Dr. Towers did appeal that to circuit court. In the interim, he went back to Red Hill, and then came out and withdrew his appeal in circuit court. So we still have jurisdiction over that, just for the record.
I've got a question for you. What do you do for your stress buster?
We have like 2 hours of training just to figure out how to get these to turn on and off.
That is a great question. I have found a lot of solace and serenity in prayer, first and foremost. That's something that I didn't really do beforehand. Exercise. I found a lot of stress relief, anxiety relief in my exercise, and also just having that support group that I rely on to bounce questions off of, to bounce ideas off of, instead of trying to handle everything myself, getting other advice, getting other people's experiences. And I found that that's really been helpful.
Okay, are you doing anything to get yourself out in green space?
Green space?
Outside.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I fish. I really enjoy fishing. Nature. I mean, I grew up fishing. That's my favorite place to be, is out on the on the water. I go as much as I possibly can. So I really enjoy that. Really enjoy being out there with my dad. Me and my dad fish a lot. So it's just, I love being out there.
Okay, great. Good to hear that.
Have you identified any things that are triggers that might bring you to the edge, and how do you handle those in the moment?
It's a great question as well. I think triggers for me are kind of feeling out of control. And again, I've just learned a lot about that myself over the past year of, controlling exactly what I can control, stop trying to control the variables that I would like to control but can't, whether that's finances, other people, circumstances, just finding, regaining that power of what I can control has been really helpful there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if I remember correctly, when you came the first time, it was, everything was secondary to PTSD of some sort. Am I remembering that correctly?
Correct, yes.
Have you worked through those wounds to help?
Absolutely. So whenever I was at Red Hill, we really dove into a lot of that, a lot of stuff that I really haven't addressed before, just really didn't want to think about it. Whether that was my brother, my little girl, just certain things that have happened to me. I really addressed that. Then I also, whenever I got out, I have a therapist that I see actually twice a month now. And we have been addressing that with him as well.
What have you been doing? I mean, you're not working now, right?
Correct.
So what have you been doing, keeping yourself busy?
So I was serving at Texas Roadhouse in Benton. Did that for a long time. I'm still doing it some now. I'm also a personal trainer. I started a personal training business, and I also personal train for the Addiction Recovery Center here in Little Rock Natural State Recovery. I go and I train the clients there, the folks that are staying there. I'll do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So what is the ask? What are we being asked to consider?
He's here today. He had emergency suspension and the board upheld the emergency suspension. And at the time, I think basically advised him. And after that hearing, I mean, Ty got back in touch with us some, but the suggestion was follow the recommendation, go to treatment, engage with the support group. And that's exactly what Ty's done. I mean, he went to treatment and had this appeal with the board kind of sitting out there. And he can tell you what happened with that. But I think he let his attorney go, but then needed the attorney to remove the appeal status with the court. And it took a little bit when he was getting out of treatment to get that done. We couldn't enter a contract with him until he got that step done because it put us in an immediate conflict issue with us. So he went to the support group. I mean, he engaged in the recovery process, graduated from Red Hill as a sister or brother or sister facility to Palmetto, which most of us are pretty familiar with. Red Hill is a little bit different because I think they have like a chef there that cooks for you. And like, it's nice. But it costs more money also for being that nice. I don't think they have any insurance payment or billing. I think it's all cash at that one. But it's the same recovery program they have at Palmetto. So he successfully completed that, immediately engaged with the support group. His request today really is they're bringing him back with advocacy, saying that they are supportive of him getting his license reinstated and going back to work. So it's always kind of the two-part question. Is the board willing to let him go back to work? And then number two, under what type of contract and everything else?
You have potential work lined up?
So in the perfect world, I would love to go back to work with Walgreens. That's who I was with beforehand. I know Brad Lawson pretty well. That's my, that would be my dream to go back to work for them. But at this point, I guess I don't really have a specific thing in mind.
And he just got advocacy from the support group Sunday. So all this has happened in like the last 3 days. Knowing that he was, on track and would be coming up, sometime. I know that Eric and Jennifer have asked like, hey, when are the board's meetings to know if we've got people that are on track, kind of what we're shooting for. So he met with them Sunday.
So looking at the order and notice of hearing, on page 3 under the paragraph F13. So those were recommendations that were made at that time.
That was at that time, this time last year. And so that's actually Red Hill where that was done. And so they made the following recommendations, but one of them, like number 2, is the big one, which is actually completing a treatment program. So he went back and I can't remember, you went back in December?
Yes, I was there from December 12th to March 12th,
Yeah.
approximately 91
Part 2 has
days.
been done.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's done part 2. He signed a contract for monitoring with support group. So he's done number 1. And part of that is, and I apologize, we have it, but number 3 would change based on successful completion of that program. So we have another, report, like exit report, and got reports while he was there, basically saying like he has successfully completed this. And at that point, they generally turn it over to the support group and say, he would be able to safely return to practice once approved by the support group.
And is that what he's coming here with?
Yep.
Okay. Do we generally follow this in the incremental?
So the first thing is a yes or no. And there have only been a few rare occurrences where I've seen the board say no when the support group was here to give advocacy. Those are extreme cases where it had involved things like, risk to children, supplying methamphetamine ingredients. I mean, they were extreme cases, not what we're talking about here. So generally that answer is yes. Then it's under what type of arrangement. Generally, whatever is approved is initially, 20 hours a week with supervision, which protects as much, Ty or Eric or me or whomever it is, so that you're not left alone your first day on the job and gone, good luck. And you go, holy crap, that's not what I was expecting to see. That oftentimes, work at 20 hours a week is generally a month or so of that before they would go back to support group and request being able to increase to 32 hours a week, and generally a month or more at 32, and they could request full time, which we would think is 40 hours, but I think technically we say 50. We've got a couple people who've done 7 on, 7 off. So we look at it every 2-week thing. At some point in the future, generally after a year, Eric's going to correct me in a minute because I'm going to say something wrong. After a year, sometimes people say, I would like approval again to be a PIC and a preceptor if I need to supervise someone that is a foreign pharmacy graduate, is kind of the timeline of back to practice before we look at that. They are calling in every day or logging in every day to see if it's their day to test. If they need to take a trip somewhere, or they have some sort of issue where they're not going to be able to test for a little bit. Like we've had people that have had a heart attack and they're in the hospital having to be on medications that would be an issue with their drug test. Like they have time in and time out for that. After a couple of years of support group, they can apply to have a release for a block of time for vacation or something like that. What am I missing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have something you're missing. He hasn't signed a probation consent.
Well, that's what he's asking to do
Right,
today.
so I think another decision would be how long you want his license suspended for an indefinite period. I think you've done 5 years before. So that's something else you need to think about,
Yeah. And
how
so
long the probation period.
he's answering more concise than I am. The request is if he's allowed to go back to work, it would be under the probation consent order is what we transfer over instead of the suspension.
Okay, repeat that again.
We would transfer him to a probation consent order if he's allowed to go back to work, and it outlines all of that stuff, including length of the order, and then it would start out with the 20 hours a week.
So first thing is, do we want to let him go back? Yes or no?
Yeah. And that would be basically, yes, we're willing to let him go back to work and enter into a probation consent order, and then you set specific parameters.
Will of the board.
I'll make a motion that he be allowed to return to work.
Second. We have a motion and a second. A motion by Dr. Davenport, second by Dr. Boone. Is there further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So we allow them to go back and that will be by,
Probation consent order. So initially it would be 20 hours over the next 5 years. It would have service hours, 20 hours a year, service hours. And then it's your decision on, is it a long-term agreement? Is it 5 years at lifetime? Anytime that it's more than 5 years, we limit the probationary status and the community service and all that just to the first 5 years.
that's a lot of moving parts that I haven't had to handle before. So.
You've done it in formals.
Yeah, we have. So the issue is whether or not you want the probation consent to be a lifetime contract with the board. And then there's a period of how long you want them on probation. So we have several people that are on lifetime contracts. But you've done shorter periods too.
I'd say, I think everyone where it's been prescription drugs lately has
Yeah.
been a
And
lifetime.
I'm looking at one now, but yeah.
Ty, your main issue was alcohol and then marijuana, as I recall. Which is,
And it wasn't really related to, I mean, nothing happened in the pharmacy where he
Yeah.
worked.
there's no diversion. There were, I mean, you recall there were incidents attached to his work, but not in a pharmacy, like a hotel after hours type stuff, and then some other erratic behavior.
Would the staff have a recommendation? I mean, kind of
I
what I'm
don't
hearing.
know that we do on this one because it's the first one we've seen in a while that wasn't a prescription drug issue.
Is there any data, or does maybe the support group have a recommendation on whether or not that accountability remains beneficial for them long-term? Like if we're thinking of their benefit?
I think I think we've seen fewer relapses with longer term contracts just because there's that ongoing monitoring. I know, Mr. Simpson had shared before his thoughts on that dealing with other boards. He's been fairly vocal about it.
My belief in that is that the drug addiction is something that you need to have random unannounced drug testing forever, both as a safeguard to the community as well as a service to the individual involved on keeping them straight. I don't have any feeling about that in this particular matter, however.
As a general rule, I know we see different with everybody, but as a general rule, if it was their first time and it wasn't stealing drugs from the pharmacy type thing, have we done 5 years or have we done?
It's been a minimum of 5 years.
Yeah.
For anyone. I'm just thinking the last 2 years or so, it seems like almost all of them that we've seen involved drug diversion, impairment at work, prescription drugs that in many ways are probably harder to deal with than testing for marijuana. I mean, you play with marijuana and it's not just hey, in 14 hours you're clear. It's, any consistency, it's days, weeks.
Well, except for the diversion issue from a pharmacy, I mean, drugs are drugs, alcohol, albeit recreational, ubiquitously available. Marijuana is Schedule 1 unless it's pursuant to a medical marijuana card, which still doesn't have any application for pharmacists. So I'm not so sure that I would make a differentiation between the two in a significant way.
Except the difference to me is whether stealing drugs from the pharmacy to take it. That seems worse to me than this. I mean, if you can't compare apples to oranges, but it just seems like the ones we've done lifetime really were stealing drugs and hurting drugs and everything straight out of a pharmacy.
So just, and I'll I'll speak on behalf of myself, not on behalf of the pharmacy support group. In my opinion, the ultimate goal of a peer recovery network is so that you can live lifelong sustained sobriety. And that's the goal. And I feel like with our group, we provide guardrails. So we have our guardrails of monitoring, and the testing frequency decreases the further along that you make it. And, you know, just from my work with other professions is that, you know, again, the goal is sustained recovery. And some people need those guardrails forever, and some people don't need those guardrails forever. It's really hard to make a distinction between who needs them and who doesn't need them. My personal opinion is that we don't want to continue to force people into recovery. I mean, once you've lived in recovery, like, you do not want to go back. And, you know, you keep different guardrails in place, whether it's prescription monitoring or meetings or, you know, a peer group, et cetera. You keep that in place so that you can continue to do what you're doing, even when you're off contract. And I know that doesn't probably make anything any clearer than it was a minute or two ago. But, you know, I know from your perspective, you know, you're wanting to protect the public, and, you know, you want them to have the best chance at everything. But traditionally, you know, most folks, the first time that they come in, whether it not be due to, you know, diverting or any of that from work, has been a 5-year contract. And, you know, we have a lot of people that finish their contracts and stick around with the support group, just so that they can continue to, you know, share their experience, strength, and hope with the group.
Can I just add a couple of things? So the probation consent order that the board does runs simultaneously with the support group contract. So if you have an indefinite order, it just means that you all are retaining jurisdiction for as long as he is working as a pharmacist. And, you know, his violations, if he violates the terms of the probation consent order, will bring him back in here and he'll have to surrender his license. That's one of the provisions in the probation consent order with the board. And then I think at some point, the level of supervision with the support group contract probably diminishes based on how far they've gone in their recovery. This contract would still be for whatever period of time that you all saw fit to extend this, would still give the board jurisdiction if something were to happen again. And if I'm misstating that, let me know.
We've had, it's been a while since the board did this because it's, haven't been here a long time. I mean, and Eric's seen this for a long time too. We kind of go through this sine wave of nothing more than a 5-year, no less than a lifetime, nothing lower than a 5-year, or even more than a 5-year, nothing less than a lifetime. And a couple of times the board has played with, like, you know, sometimes we want a lifetime on this because of the nature of how the addictive disease was exhibited or whatever else. And I agree, you know, a drug is a drug is a drug, but at the same time, it's what someone might have done while they were impaired or in kind of the throes of addiction is different in some instances versus others. You know, you're going to see people that had other issues besides addictive disease either during or while they were in the support group. The board has toyed a couple of times, said, you know what, we're going to do this amount of time, but we're going to give a chance for them to come in and review and potentially consider a lesser time at some point. So we're going to say lifetime, but let's get an update from you in 5 years and see if we are willing to release it in 5 years or in at one point, I think there was one that was 7, which was like the weirdest oddball ever that I've seen. And at one point we had people saying, I want to come and get reconsidered for my lifetime contract. But you only get to do that if the board sets it up front that you get to do that. Otherwise, you've agreed to this. We don't generally renegotiate unless the board has given us that time and space, because to renegotiate, we have to basically re-educate a new board about everything that happened. So like Dr. Newsom remembers a whole bunch of people from way back, and I've seen you more than once say, no, I remember you and I remember everything about you, and that's why I'm not voting for this today. But she has institutional knowledge that is just different than, most of the rest of us are going to have because of her time on the board. So when we've had people that are just on a flat lifetime without that clause and they say they want to renegotiate, I mean, I'm not trying to be obstinate in saying this, but I say, well, then how about you resurrender your license and we'll start from scratch and you can renegotiate with the board from scratch. And it might get better and it might get worse, because the current board might have a different feeling about what level of violation you had 10 years ago, 20 years ago, than what happened back then.
I like the idea of doing whatever the verbiage is for, you make it a lifetime, but they have the opportunity to. Just because I just happened to glance down that it was every day for 2.5 years to excess, and that's halfway to 5.
Okay, one other thing to add too is that when they're discharged from treatment, there are recommendations from that treatment center on length of contract. And I don't have Ty's discharge papers, but generally
They always say 5.
they always say 5 years. So just take that into consideration as well.
Most of them are measured. Most of the things you ever would see for like relapse recovery, they go out to basically a 5-year data point. So I don't recall ever having seen one where they recommended lifetime, because it's just they recommend 5 years. And I think a lot of the reasoning is if you make it through 5 years clean and have lived it for 5 years, you built pretty good habits to prevent relapse.
Yeah, and what makes this one a little bit different, marijuana is still Schedule 1, and he's a pharmacist. He has knowledge of what that drug is and where it is. It's still Schedule 1.
I don't think personally, I'm not on board with a lifetime suspension or probation. I just think that's a little excessive. I think we've got a recommendation here for 5 years. It doesn't involve diversion. So personally, I would lean towards 5 years.
Is that a motion?
I was just going to say that I do all the reporting for the National Data Bank, and there was a section there that asked whether it's an auto renew or auto reinstate when you put that information in. And we have, I think, in the past, and John may correct me, but done it like a 5-year with a review by the board at that time, rather than an automatic renewal or reinstatement. So you could put 5 years, return to the board to conclude the contract.
Well, and I think the way that you really want to state that is that you have to state that it's longer than 5 years with potential to end at 5 years, because the 5 years is actually 5 years while working. Because I mean, like Ty may decide that he's having way more fun as a personal trainer than dealing with the issues of flu season and shots. And if he wanted to do that for an extra 6 months, the 5 years only counts while you're working. But I mean, what I think I'm hearing, especially with Dr. Boone, is whatever you do, there's a chance to cut it off at 5 years, not an automatic lifetime, which we've had some that have been automatic lifetime.
I think I like that.
So a 10-year with a 5-year revisit, or
you can set lifetime with 5 year, and it would be specified that he can revisit with the board to see about ending it at 5 years. We would put it into the probation consent order, so it's clear to both the board when you see it again and clear to him that he has that chance. But if something happens, and not that I want this to happen at all, But we've had people that struggled with their testing and they were getting too many dilute urine tests. And some of you guys may remember that case, or there was a couple of stumbles, but because they were already under a lifetime, the board didn't have to give them an additional probation consent order. It was just, here's your chance to straighten up under the current order. And when it got to the end of 5 years and you go, we've had a couple of hiccups, say you can come back and visit us in 2, like the board could reset that if there are hiccups, rather than saying immediate surrender, start all over with the process, which is catastrophic.
I think the thing I was thinking is just that it's not definite either way. Like if we set it at 5 years, then he comes back before the board to say this is complete or whatever. Or if we set it longer, then he can still come back before the board, like a check-in.
Sure. I would set it longer so that if you come back at 5 years, they don't go, it's another 5 years. And you went, well, it didn't tell me it could be longer. It could only tell me it'd be shorter. That's, I think, the way we'd worded it before.
But what does he have to do at 5 years? Does he have to?
It would basically give him the opportunity to request to come before the board to request release. You know, a review before the board, because if you don't put that clause in there, he doesn't have a right to do it.
I would say we haven't released many that, maybe because it didn't have that clause.
Well, we have released a lot because they didn't have any clause to reappear. Like Dr. Crummer and I were just talking about, like we have people that complete contract, and you know, whenever, if he sends me a letter that says John Kirtley completed his contract successfully on August 29th, we would put it in their file and then send them a recognition letter, like we recognize you have completed your contract with the support group. But you never see that.
I mean, when they've come before us and asked to.
I only know of
that we've done that.
1 or 2 of those in my time that actually had that review clause.
I don't know if we're setting him up for a board that's here that day, may or may not.
Mr.
That's the only thing I'm worried about is I'm wondering if, because if you're coming in on a few years later and you think, ooh, that board put it at 20, they probably had a reason to put it at 20.
Well,
Still overturn it. That's my worry.
I think the problem that you guys are facing right now, that I know other states have faced as well as this situation, is you don't know right now if you're comfortable with it only being 5, but you're not comfortable saying it's forever in this case. In some cases, you're comfortable. And I'm trying to split the two to get agreement that, you know, you said it as potentially ongoing indefinitely. Indefinite is a term, not lifetime, but it's an indefinite contract with potential for review at a certain point. So you're
indefinite versus
I would,
lifetime.
personally, I would lean more towards a 10-year with a 5-year relook, because then you're at least putting some end on it, whereas
Because I feel
nobody's saying we
for
could.
them to feel that it's fair, they have an end.
Yeah, I think 10 is wise.
How's that enter? Just enter it as 10 with a potential review of 5. Okay. I knew indefinite, we can like check an indefinite box and put, you know, in indefinite, no one says, oh, you got off probation early. It's, you know, you got off when you got off.
Is there consensus on that?
Raining again. If you could schedule that, John, that would be helpful.
I'm going to make sure your batteries die right halfway through it too. So
I'm okay with that as long as indefinite means it continues in existence until something changes.
that's the way we had done it. I say lifetime because that's the general term that we all use. And that's my fault for even using that term. What it says is indefinite. Yeah, we took that out because it's indefinite. If you choose not to practice pharmacy anymore, then you don't have to be under our, you know, monitoring. So the actual term is indefinite. And then we've had clauses, but I mean, or, you know, what Dr. Boone said, you know, 10 years with the clause of review. I think the biggest thing for TIDA here is you guys I'm hearing overwhelming agreement that you guys want there to be a potential for it to be over in 5 years. And even if it was indefinite or 10, we would stop any probation status, community service status, and all that would automatically stop it at 5. And we count that as straight time, not necessarily time at work. So we could have somebody that old style would have a 5-year contract. Well, if they didn't work for the first year of it, well, they'll have 5 years working that is going to be watched with the support group, but their probation would end 5 years from the date of the contract start. And their community service is, whether you're working or not, it's just a straight 5 years. We have 4 rotating wheels that I knew you would appreciate that.
I just think it's really good if we did the 10, then he knows even if we don't change our mind in 5.
It's over at 10.
Or if he doesn't have to,
He may
Protect
change
them.
our mind.
maybe fine with continued monitoring and do it for 10 years.
It feels like a good guardrail.
So do we have consensus on what you want to do? Anyone want to articulate that into a motion?
So I make a motion for Dr. Towers. We do a 10-year probation with the opportunity to revisit at 5.
10-year length of order.
10-year length of order with a option for him to request a review at 5 after 5 years. Anything else
And
we
then
need to include in
the
that?
standard part of 5 years
Probation with 20
community
hours community service
and starting at
and
20.
starting at 20 hours a week supervised.
Then he can come back at the few months. Thing.
Yeah, he works with that directly with the support group. They let us know and we put them on our earliest agenda point afterwards.
Second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we need to reread that motion
I think we've got it.
or? Okay.
She's got to write it up, so.
Any further discussion on this? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Carries.
So Ty, what we'll do is when we get out of meetings later this week, we'll have Ms. Vales type up a probation consent order for you. And we want to make sure that we've got your best email address, contact information to send it to you so that you can look at it. And if you've got a question about something you don't understand, by all means, we'll walk you through every line of it if we need to. Okay. Anything else?
Sir, thank you.
See you guys. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
There's no.
Ready?
Okay. Just some background information, if you want to.
Absolutely. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves and tell us who you are? And you can leave it green for the meeting once you get it turned on. There you go. First try.
Right. My name is Quentin Whiteside. I'm an attorney at Wright, Lindsay and Jennings. And this here with me is Edwin Cross. He works at Novum and he flew all the way in here from New Jersey for this hearing today.
And just some background information, what you have in your tablet under tab 4 is their application for wholesale distributor. Novum was here in front of the board last year, I believe. and I'll explain why. They submitted a change of ownership application on June 27th, 2022, and indicated in that application that the change of ownership occurred on November 19th, 2021. That's beyond the statutory timeframe for that. So on November 7th of 2022, we sent a non-disciplinary consent agreement for failure to notify us of the change of ownership in a timely manner. We sent the consent agreement to the address that was on their application. It was not signed and it was not returned. And we sort of held on to it for a little bit, just waiting to hear something. But eventually we set it for a hearing. And the hearing was on June 7th of 2023. And we did send notice of that hearing to that same address. And they did not appear for the hearing. So the hearing was held in their absence. And the board found the allegations were true and the charges were proven. And the final order was mailed to their address in June 14th of 2023, which meant they no longer had a permit. Then Mr. Whiteside, I think, got involved at some point, and they have submitted a new application that you have in your packet on May 8th, 2024. And staff just didn't feel comfortable granting that application because they had the issue with the change of ownership and had those findings by the board at the previous hearing. They what?
They did not appeal the hearing.
No, there was no,
They just took it.
yeah, there was no appeal from that order. And we didn't hear from them, I guess, until Mr. Whiteside got involved earlier this year. So that is why they're here today. So it's a decision on whether or not to grant their permit.
So there was a period of, so your time for your ownership changed and you were sent a notice and you either didn't get it or ignored it. And then there was a hearing that was held and then no one showed. So how is it, what happened in the interim that all of a sudden now you came to the realization that there had been an action taken in Arkansas? I mean, did you in fact get our letters and were you made aware? And why were they not acted upon? And I guess I'm trying to figure out what the mindset was at that point, and then why would we be persuaded to then issue another license? How would we know that wouldn't occur again?
So we back in 2015, the company Novum Pharma started as a private company. And in November 2021, it was purchased by a company called ANA Pharmaceuticals based in Minnesota. So now we are a subsidiary of ANA Pharmaceuticals. So during the time frame when the ownership changed, there were a lot of personal changes back and forth. And no one with an authority came to saw the notification from the Arkansas Pharmacy Board, and that's how we completely missed it.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So no one with an authority was made aware of the letter that came into play. And so we were a small company, and then normally when the U.S. mail or the UPS or FedEx, they'll come and drop off the mail on a desk and they will leave it. And we didn't have a person assigned to deliver or distribute the mail. And somehow the mails got lost. And no one with authority was made aware of the letters. And that's how we messed it.
It just got lost in the mail, in the shuffle.
Well, let me just, for clarification, someone signed the green card for our documents, even the final order. All we're required to do is send it to the last known address that we have, but someone, whether it was a person sitting at that desk, I don't know, but I did have a green card that they received the consent agreement offer, and then notice of the hearing was also signed by a green card.
And I'll add to that, based on what I know, is that we're not disputing any of the green card notices at all. One of your questions was, how did we find out about this? if we're not getting notices. Well, the Arizona Board of Pharmacy, when we did an application there, we wrote that we didn't have anything in front of any other board. And they notified us and said, no, yes, you do, in front of the Arkansas board. So to us, the system was working, right? That's what worked the way it should. I will add that we've added processes. Legal has been involved and added processes to where now the mail, somebody will get the mail now. So those have all been changed and done for the better.
And so the license was essentially taken away in June, but that was of last year?
Mhm. So the license, if you don't get it done within 14 days, it's void. And if we do the consent agreement, then we'll sort of resolve that issue. But the board upheld that action by us making it void since they didn't respond. And then obviously Dr. McCready reported it into the NABP profile, which probably is where Arizona found it.
So have you continued to ship drugs into the state of Arkansas since June of last year?
I do not believe so.
How did y'all know it was? Y'all weren't getting the mail. How did y'all even know your license was weighing or?
So when it comes to the state pharmacy licenses, we don't do this. We have a private company that used to do that. It's a company called SLS. They were the ones who are responsible to renew all of our licenses. And for some reason, they are no longer our authorized agent. We have another agent that works on these state licenses.
So from June of last year, you would not have had a proper license to ship into the state. You found out through the Arizona board when?
I believe it was in May of this year.
May of this year. So for approximately 11 months, then you were unbeknownst, not licensed in the state of Arkansas. How would you have not known, or how would you have known not to ship in to Arkansas during that period of time?
I really am not able to answer that. We have another, I'm the head of operations for the site. Now that we are a bigger company, we have another group from the corporate side that does all the distribution. I really cannot answer that question.
So if I'm asking this on the staff side as a talk through, if they had forgotten to renew and had minimal shipments and then reapplied, it would be a $2,500 penalty. But I think the hearing that we had before was going to be a $2,500 penalty for the lack of timely change of ownership. What were the findings that we sent them? Was it just pulled their permit or did it have a monetary penalty? I didn't see it in here.
Let me pull it up.
And I ask that because, we have a way where a lot of times we can solve some of that on the staff side. This one was a little bit more convoluted because we didn't get that initial agreement back for non-disciplinary order, but we knew that the change had happened. So then we brought it before the board. They, because of their internal distribution system, didn't know there was a hearing, didn't know it had happened or anything else.
So the ultimate order from the board reads: the State Board of Pharmacy finds allegations true, charges proven, and denies the change of ownership application.
Which basically meant that by denying the change of ownership that wasn't timely, it meant that their permit would therefore be void.
Yeah.
Because it was automatically voided 14 days after the change of ownership.
It does say revokes the permit.
Yeah.
In the order.
So their request today is once they found out they did not have a permit any longer due to the untimely change of ownership and the lack of response, is they have submitted a new application. So they're asking for approval to get reissued a permit and to be able to ship into the state again. And Dr. Richmond, I understand exactly what you're saying. If they didn't know they did not have a permit any longer, it would have been whatever business was as usual. And I can ask you guys, pretty small company overall, as I recall, with limited shipping. How big is like, what type of business volume did you even foresee having back then for Arkansas?
Back then it was a much smaller company. I would say we were about 40 to 50 employees. We were probably selling $40 million.
Yeah. What are your main products?
Well, we make solid dosage. I mean, we make prescription drugs.
Okay.
Mostly they are solid dosage tablets and capsules and some liquids.
Mainly like generic line?
Yes. Correct.
And private brand?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of your stuff isn't directly distributed to the state, it's distributed to an intermediary wholesaler?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. So the issue that we have in this is we require the manufacturer to have a permit as a manufacturer, which could also let them do wholesaling, but it's just as they've checked off in their application, they were the manufacturer didn't have a permit at the time. But the wholesalers who physically shipped to Arkansas, unless they shipped to like Smith Wholesale, did have a permit that was active. So their request is to get an active permit again, which, you know, if it hadn't been for the previous action, if we found out that they had done minimal shipments or had done minimal shipments business to Arkansas, we would probably offer a, you know, minimal $2,500 non-disciplinary agreement for the investigative cost and then issued their permit as staff. This one's just more complicated.
Mr. Simpson, you had.
I'd like to, obviously before today, you realized you had a problem not having a license, right? I'd like to know specifically what investigation you did to identify any drugs that had been shipped into Arkansas.
Well, I mean, to what you were saying, most of our drugs are sent to a primary distribution company. And they are the ones who distribute our drugs. They are the ones who distribute the drugs throughout the country. We do not directly sell to any pharmacies.
Okay, so you can verify to us today that your company made no direct shipments into Arkansas. You may have sent some to wholesalers, but you can verify you didn't send any directly into Arkansas.
I believe so. I cannot 100% say that because I'm not the one directly involved.
Yeah, we do have like one larger wholesaler here that they might have distributed to that's up in Paragould, but we haven't sent them a subpoena for that. And I understand he may just not know specifically if they shipped that one or not.
Well, I understand that about the wholesaler, but what about your company making a shipment directly into Arkansas?
Well, I'm saying it sounds like he doesn't know specifically if their company shipped to the wholesaler in Arkansas for them to distribute.
Well, leaving that aside, can you rule out shipping it to anybody other than a wholesaler in Arkansas?
I would say so. I just want to say that I am the head of operations, that I take care of the day-to-day operations here. There is another group that does this side of the business, but they were not able to make it because they had another another business to go to. So I'm representing the company, and I can pretty much say that I do not want to say 100% that they didn't sell it, but I do believe that we did not sell directly to Arkansas.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Now, I have one related question. Now that you know you had this problem in the past, what specific steps have you taken to see that it doesn't happen again?
Well, so I'm the fact that I'm the one responsible for day-to-day operations. I have installed a mailbox right at the front entrance, and we have a person that's dedicated. She's the receptionist. She's responsible to obviously receive employees. She's also now the person to receive all the mails that come from the U.S. Post Office as well as the UPS and FedEx. And she holds them with her in the mailbox, and she would personally distribute to the employees. We didn't have that in the past. In the past, the U.S. Post Office would come in and they would leave the mails right on the desk and leave. And whoever finds the mail would distribute. That's what happened back then. Sure. Now we have a system in place.
Okay, thank you.
So am I correct in understanding that this ultimately is a a mail issue? Like, had they received, not received, but had they addressed the mail appropriately, this would have been avoided?
Well, we offered them a $1,100. So if they had.
If they'd done that,
The person who made that decision, then yes, we would have done that non-disciplinary.
Okay.
That fee.
I just want to also say that, I'm personally responsible to take care of the state permits with the New Jersey State when it comes to the NJDP, the New Jersey Department of Animal Protection, the Department of Consumer Affairs. I also work with the Food and Drug Administration and the DEA. I can tell you that we do a lot of permits and registration licenses. We have not had the issue. This was one isolated incident that I want to make sure that won't happen again.
So, Dr. McCready, so I mean, we've already reported it to NAVP.
And that revocation is there. I mean, we reported it. Now, if the board chooses to issue a license, we can go back in. If the board chooses to let them have a license with whatever terms you choose, then we will go back in and say that we have there's been another action on this license and it has now been reinstated with the following terms, whether that be the $2,500 penalty or $5,000 or none or whatever it is. We will at that point go back in. The revocation is there and it's going to stay there.
Good.
But there will be a continued action that says they've met with the board and we have now issued a license.
and this will be a new permit number since we killed the old one and it's a different company. Generally,
But I don't feel like we should
right?
give him.
No,
We never changed it.
no, it'd be reissued under the old permit number. So we would be able to show that it was.
I mean,
Approved later.
it shouldn't go away. It didn't go away.
Yeah.
But I also don't think they get out of the 2,500 plus fine because had they just paid it, they still would have had the fine. So I don't know why we would.
But it would have been a non-disciplinary
It would
action.
not have been reported at that point, but they received the letter. It's not that the company didn't get them. It's that whomever was at the front desk didn't give them to somebody or they got on somebody's desk and they got knocked in the trash or they didn't get read, for whatever reason. While they received them, they did not act on them.
Correct.
So once we had the hearing, of course, that gets reported. Once it's reported, it's reported.
Is this a scenario where we would do like the $2,500 and then like any board expenses that were involved in after the fact or no?
This is kind of an informal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an informal hearing today.
You can do what you want. Every day that if they were shipping, they didn't have a license. We didn't send a subpoena, so we don't know what was shipped. That every day that they were acting without a license would be a violation. So you can do it as investigated costs. You can do it as however, because it's an informal, and then they have the option of accepting that or not.
Yeah, I think for them, we get different messaging on this stuff. I mean, they're basically saying, we messed up internally. We have a way to fix that. We're trying to get back right with this state. And neither they or staff know exactly how to get there other than to sit down and talk about it.
Right, and I do appreciate not trying to fight the fact that it didn't really get there.
Any further discussion? Will the board?
So none of the stuff that was done in the past, has that been cleared up at all? It's still just hanging out there.
There's nothing left to clear up because the offer that was given in a non-disciplinary manner we didn't get a response. The people that could have responded never got it, even though it made it to the address. My kid got the mail and didn't hand me the bill. type of issue. So they're requesting us to approve their application, and it's under, review basically for you. Are you willing to approve it? And if so, are you wanting to reinstate that non-disciplinary penalty, or you want a disciplinary penalty? Like whatever you want to do with it.
Thank you.
It seems to me that there has to be some penalty, else we set a precedent for somebody completely ignoring our actions.
Right. It doesn't have to be disciplinary though, right?
No, it doesn't. If you offer it as a consent agreement, it's in lieu of taking further action, you're entering into this non-disciplinary agreement to fix the paperwork. Because if we send a subpoena and try to do it, I mean, that gets exponentially more difficult for staff as far as how much time we're going to spend even building
And
that
if
case.
it doesn't seem necessary if it wasn't on purpose, if it was I have no idea how to gauge the fine though.
Just talk it off. At least what it was.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think.
Just double it or something? That cover their time?
The original consent agreement was $2,500. Like John said, if you don't get the bill in the mail, that compounds. I think John probably agrees it doesn't have to be some outrageous amount of penalty or anything like that, but something that I think is fair.
How much investigative time has the board spent?
If you include the hearing before, the amount of time to put the documents together, all of that.
Yeah, that's where the cost was.
That's where that.
The hearing officer and the board time, that probably didn't take a ton of board time, but it takes a decent bit of prep.
Can you quantify that?
I mean, $1,000, $2,000. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're in the ballpark with all that.
And then there would be a new fee for the new license.
Which they've already paid that.
Okay.
Yeah.
See some head nods. Anybody want to put that in form of a motion?
Yeah, I'd say on the application of Nova TM, whether or not you're going to grant it, and then under a consent agreement for the following non-disciplinary is what I think I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I would recommend. At the application.
Um, And that would, once it's entered, we would approve their application.
I will second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Are we clear on what we're, okay? So any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? And we recognize that Dr. Boone recused himself from this one.
So what we'll do is we'll make what we would call a consent agreement, and Quentin will send it to you so that if you've got any questions or clarifications you need on it, outlining specifically that it's considered non-disciplinary. Entering into that would result in us approving the application in finality. And then we'll make sure that Dr. McCready would then report into the National Data Bank that it was revoked. It has now been reissued in the new owner, so that anyone that looks at that history can tell that it was, it's back in good standing. And that's it's got to be their address for their application, 70 Lake Drive. Yeah. Okay. And we'll send it to legal counsel anyway. Okay. All right, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Maybe. You on their board of directors? You on them?
He wants to. I don't think we got any problems. He probably wants to listen to it. Have a seat, guys. One of them's already green. You're welcome to press the button and try your luck at the other one. There you go. First try. It either works immediately or it doesn't work until you punch it about 8 times. If you guys want to tell us who all you are, and then we will kind of kick off this one.
Sure, I can get us started. Hi, I'm Kristen Watson Swan. I'm a native Arkansan, went to pharmacy school here. I have worked for Cardinal Health in the nuclear and precision health solutions as a pharmacist. And then just recently, about 6 or 7 months ago, joined our regulatory department. So that's why I was the lead on the communication with you guys, because I'm a local pharmacist now living back in Arkansas.
Hello, thank you for inviting us. My name is Andrew Brown. I'm a pharmacist licensed in the state of Ohio. I am part of the Nuclear and Precision Health Solutions regulatory team as well in terms of pharmacy practice, and am Kristen's coworker.
Hello, my name is Brian Parker. I'm the pharmacy manager in the Fayetteville, Arkansas location.
And it's really late in the day for you, right? That's funny for anybody in nuclear pharmacy or anybody that has to inspect, anyone who has to inspect a nuclear pharmacy, because we get there at 5 a.m., they're already done for the day. They're like closing up shop, like, why are you here? Real quick, and I'll try to summarize this. If Monet was here, I'd say we're going to go through an entire overview of 825 and do individual argument points, but I know he's not with Cardinal any longer, but that would still be a fun one. In short, this is Cardinal. We haven't had a request like this in some time, but we do have a specific training requirement for nuclear pharmacy training in our rules. And while we've had a couple of nationally recognized programs, I don't know that we've ever actually approved Cardinals. While I think that staff is aware that it is a fine program and meets all the NRC guidelines and everything, it's a good chance to get you guys in front of the board and have a quick review of it. So this is mainly not just for your pharmacists, but especially for your other handlers, like your pharmacy technicians that are handling prep in the pharmacy and getting stuff ready to ship. What else am I missing on that?
No, I think you've reviewed it well. The program is designed to meet the requirements outlined by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Arkansas Radiation Control Section. Primarily, the training required to be either an authorized user who's a non-pharmacist or an authorized nuclear pharmacist is outlined in those regulations. And this program is designed to meet those. It's primarily focused on radiation biology, radiation safety, occupational safety, and handling radionuclides, but we also address the pharmacy-based issues. Radiopharmaceuticals are a unique subset of drugs and often not covered extensively in traditional pharmacy education. And so we, working with our teams of board-certified nuclear pharmacists, design this content to support our pharmacists in practicing nuclear pharmacy safely. So.
And it is worth noting, and I know they put this in their cover letter, there's not really like an ACPE guideline course on this. So when you go to board certification for nuclear pharmacists and translating that into the other users, it's a better model to go after than just saying we have some CE developed.
So one question, you may have said this and I might have missed it, but we just require that they have this and then now they're offering it, or?
Well, training is required and there's a specific requirement that the training program itself is approved. So like if you have someone that's doing sterile compounding training, what many boards of pharmacy for years have said is ASHP has an excellent training program for sterile technique and everything else. That's what most people use. Is that right, Kevin? Yeah. So, and he's probably right now, it's probably just a few, but historically that was kind of the one that we would see the most. I just don't know that we've ever specifically approved this program, but we're here today to see if you guys are okay with their program.
Which regulation does this fall under? Is this 7?
4. They've got it cited here. 04020100. So it's in the actual nuclear pharmacy part of 4.
Has Kevin looked at to see if it compares to what it's supposed to do?
Not really. I looked at it. I looked through it before and went, I know enough about nuclear pharmacy after having gone to UAMS that at least I had a class in it, but that's all I did. And I know that I had asked a couple of the people from like other states and stuff that they had no problems with this training program.
Training program.
Programs coming.
If you go to the next to last page, completion requirements, they're required to successfully complete all the e-learning training and have passing scores of 80%. They have 2 attempts successfully complete each assessment. It's 200 hours of didactic training, 500 hours of hands-on training, successfully completed a minimum of 6 weeks with their requirements taking up to 9 weeks. I mean, it's the thing for nuclear pharmacy training is it is a very intensive program. And I mean, a lot of boards of pharmacy don't have a nuclear trained pharmacist like we don't. We know a bunch of them because there just aren't many of them. I mean, there's traditionally like 3 colleges of pharmacy, maybe 4 in the country that even really teach it. So a lot of people get it outside of school. And you got yours at UAMS. Where'd you get yours?
So I attended Ohio Northern University.
Yeah.
And they did not have a program when I was there. And so it was all on the job.
Yeah.
Training. I completed Cardinal Health's program that was conducted in conjunction with Ohio State University.
Okay.
So we have maintained historically, we've shifted our approach to authorized nuclear pharmacist training several different times. But when I started, we worked in conjunction with a college.
So this training is for pharmacists who are practicing in nuclear pharmacy, period, irrespective of board certification.
Correct, yes.
What's different about this versus what you were doing before?
This is a standalone program, so we operate apart from any college of pharmacy. Again, we found that being able to be flexible in our training and leverage the learning resources that we have internally. We worked with our training team who are adult learning experts to make sure that this technical material is presented in a way that's effective to the learners.
Well, and I would say the difference is they're in a facility where you have to get the hours, whereas the colleges generally have to find you a facility where you would get the hours. So the college is the didactic portion more so, and then partner just like senior rotations with someone else for the hands-on experience. This one's built more towards the hands-on experience versus theory.
So is it all computer-based modules?
There are computer-based modules. The intent of the computer-based modules is to provide the foundational information. We use the term to prepare the learner to have a discussion surrounding that. Really, the meat of the program is in activities, in hands-on handling of whether it's radiation detection equipment, whether it's the certain principles of aseptic technique that are unique to radiopharmaceuticals, whether it's the equipment that's used in the pharmacy. So really, the meat of the modules is provided as hands-on, maybe discussions, maybe observations, but most of it's hands-on handling of material within the pharmacy with your preceptor.
What is this replacing? Like, this may be a dumb question, but like, what is the board's jurisdiction over this?
Well,
Like,
they have to have a training program for their folks that work there. And if we approve this, they can do it all in-house with this training program instead of having to send them to a different educational institution. And I imagine over the volume that Cardinal does in time, that's expensive in a hurry.
And there is an element of flexibility there, but I would say there also is an element of being able to present content that's timely, that is relevant. Frankly, we are leaders in handling radiopharmaceuticals, and so being able to address content quickly, timely, and lean on the depth of our subject matter experts really was a driving factor in standing up our own program.
I've just been asked, I'm just looking at what you're looking at in your packet from what was submitted. The only thing I gotta say is I'm not really seeing anything here that relates to 825. Doesn't even address 825 in here.
So we have an extensive 825 compliance program. It is our target of compliance and an extensive policy and procedure to comprehensively address it. The targets of training addressed by the NRC and the radiation control section. Again, their focus is primarily in radiation protection and appropriate handling of radioactive material. So 825 is very much our target of compliance, and we train to that, but it's not part of the authorized nuclear pharmacist training. I think we do review it. I would need to look over the syllabus. We have the regulation review.
I'd have to check too.
Yeah, I need to look over it, but
I don't have it memorized.
Would that be covered at all under radiation regulations and procedures?
And we'll have to double check our training program.
I bet you guys could send us that program or like the overview of it.
It should be in your packet that you received,
No, I mean, just the other 825 shore up.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. That,
I'm sure, how many of you guys have been to a nuclear pharmacy? I mean, we toured it in school. Right. There's only a few of them and they're just different.
we would welcome any.
oh, sure. I'm local here in Arkansas now, so I can help if you guys ever wanted a tour. Obviously the Little Rock pharmacists who work there currently could show you around, but I can too.
There are what, 4 or 5 in Arkansas?
How many, Kevin? 4? Or I think one of them starting up, but 4 or 5.
Are we looking for a motion here?
Yep.
So I'd make a motion to refer to board staff once you review the 825 training that they're offering for your approval.
So approval once we review 825
Yes.
section of it. Okay.
We have a motion by Dr. Boone and a second by Dr. Davenport. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Thank you guys. Shoot that to us.
Yes, we'll follow up.
You didn't have to bring in your big lead glass shield. Oh, man. The pigs. Or the shield that you have to prepare it behind. We have a friend that used to have to carry that on airplanes all the time, and TSA would kind of freak out. They're like, what? Because they send it through X-ray and it's lead shielded glass. And so it looks weird on X-ray. And they're like, what is this? Like, it's for nuclear isotopes. That never got you a shorter conversation with TSA.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Greg, you ready? Come on up. If you'll hit push, it'll turn green. You just hit the button and there you go.
Well, good afternoon. It's been a fun day so far. I watched some of your proceedings this morning.
Just wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us here today.
If you want to tell us who both of you are.
Absolutely. I'm Greg Turner. I'm co-owner of Stanley and Turner Drug Company, which we do business as Stanley Pharmacy Compounding Center in Searcy, and also Conway Outpatient Pharmacy in Conway.
And I am that. My name is Kelly Stanley. I am a pharmacist. I am what he said. Plus, my husband, I also own Stanley Pharmacy in Searcy retail store.
So we've got them here today. I know that we've actually discussed them a couple of times before. The way that different companies are able to share resources, and something that we had discussed with them is there are different things such as there's offsite order entry, there's central fill, there's different things. And the thing about central fill specifically is central fill includes the ability to do offsite order entry or workload balancing or other things when it's between two Arkansas-based pharmacies. It's a fairly straightforward request. It's only, as I understand it, for commercial products as far as central fill shipping products from one store to another. But, you know, they have a request to be able to do data entry sharing and product verification, everything between their stores. One thing that's a little bit different beyond, I know you guys have a compounding center, but you also have specialty pharmacy, and it would help to be able with whether it's 340B contracting or the ability to work with different insurance companies, that the specialty pharmacy with a central fill agreement could also help as a back-end fulfillment for the other store. I'm
That's
missing
right.
something, I'm sure.
And really, we're just requesting permission for us to have the ability to have central fill pharmacies where one pharmacy can fill scripts or do data entry. And really, ultimately, it's to help with staffing. As you guys are aware, staffing right now is critical. And what we're trying to do is maximize patient care by allowing our pharmacists to do what pharmacists should be doing, which is MTMs, drug utilization review, point of care testing, all those type of things that are really important right now in the pharmacy space. And so by having the ability to have a central fill agreement between each pharmacy and also remote data entry, offsite data entry, that would also help in this process.
Who would you be a central fill for?
For our own location.
For themselves.
Just
for each.
Not Stanley Pharmacy.
Not Stanley Pharmacy, just Stanley Pharmacy Compounding Center along with Conway Outpatient Pharmacy.
But it's, correct me if I misspeak, do you have 3 pharmacies in the group or just 2?
Well, we were just going to do those 2. And then we didn't know if we should add the retail store in there as well.
I'd put all 3, and that way you
All
had,
3.
and that's the advice we've given several other people that
Okay.
go, well, we have this other one over here that's weird. Like, go ahead and get it under the hut with approval instead of
Okay.
coming back in 6 months and going, man, that worked great.
Just go ahead and get it approved
Yeah,
just in case.
I mean, you could have your compound center, you may have a pharmacist that they're not tied up and they can go in and still do the order entry side.
Right, okay.
That would be helpful.
That's good.
But it's because all under one ownership blanket, it's a straightforward application for us as far as staff is concerned.
That part makes sense. Maybe I'm being a little obtuse. So Stanley Compounding does only compounding.
We do compounding as well as some 340B medications.
Yeah.
We're in Searcy, we're both an ACHC accredited compounding pharmacy and also a URAC accredited specialty pharmacy there. So we have both accreditations there.
I guess I'm having a hard time conceptualizing central fill for 2 pharmacies, one of which is specialized.
Well, we do all types of medications, basically whatever comes through the door. So as an example, if we're overloaded or having some staffing issues at our Conway location, then the pharmacist in the Searcy location could do remote data entry to help out, to catch up the queue, you name it. That would be what our main goal would be.
Well, and then with specialty and even 340B, you know, 3 pharmacies, but it's the specialty and compounding pharmacy that may actually have that specialty drug. But if the patient wants to pick it up somewhere else not for compounding, that's a whole different issue. But for that specialty drug, they could bill it, fill it, and everything at the specialty pharmacy, which we've allowed Walgreens and CVS to do, and then deliver it for patient pickup at the other location. So that's where the weird becomes pretty normal.
And I think too that the offsite data entry is important for us just because I'll take you an example, our pharmacy, which you're familiar with in Searcy, we have a building in the back. So sometimes it can get loud in the pharmacy. There's so many employees. We've got all the robots working. It would be nice if maybe one of the pharmacists could go to the back building, maybe do an MTM or do a sync medication review with one of the patients and put in data into the computer system in our back building, which is just our corporate office. And to have some peace and quiet removed from the hustle and bustle of the regular, everyday, busy pharmacy. No, have no drugs back there, but just do offsite data entry.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve central fill for the Stanley Pharmacy. I just call it the Stanley Pharmacy Group, since you have
Perfect.
more than one pharmacy.
You want to add offsite order entry to that as well?
Offsite, okay.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Also included as part of central bill is included. In that.
All right, so we have
I'll second.
a second by Dr. Davenport. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys have a good afternoon.
When you say back part of the building, you just mean like it's the other room.
No, it's the retail store. We have, it used to be a dentist office a long time ago, and it's our corporate office now. So there's just like, Scott's got an office in there. The girl that does the HR has one. But if a pharmacist wanted to go and do data entry as far as doing MTM.
Well, they could do MTM generally from anywhere. That's a pharmacist duty. But if they're doing order entry, it has to be in a permitted pharmacy under our current rules.
Okay, so, but they could do data entry. If they were reviewing an MTM profile with a patient. They do that?
We'd have to get a little bit further into the weeds of exactly what they're doing. If they're doing order entry for like preparing prescriptions, which is what offsite order entry is about, that has to be done within a permitted pharmacy. If you've got a pharmacist that's looking at medical information and doing an MTM, that is a different clinical thing, that might not have to be in a pharmacy permit. So we'll probably have to look at like what the layout is and how you're
Okay.
going to design it.
Okay,
A lot of time when you do MTM, you end up running a script or doing whatever.
I know. And you can't do that from a non-pharmacy.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, of course, they would have no drugs back there. It would just be what the label could print up front in the front building, but you can't do that either. Okay, that's what we need to
Either a
know.
permitted pharmacy or it's not.
Okay,
It'd be a non-dispensing permitted pharmacy, but it would have to be permitted.
okay, so if it is a non-dispensing permitted pharmacy, are the regulations of the hours of a pharmacist there? Okay, so they could really just go into someone's profile and have a phone conversation and review and maybe make notes. They could not do any type of prescription data entry.
We'd probably have to get further into it from the,
Okay.
and part of that would probably be like looking at it specifically on site or, not just in theory.
Okay,
Here, Dave.
so let me, I have another question then.
Yeah.
If I want to do hormone consultations for my patients and say I want to do it at my home office.
You
So
can do that clinically, generally as a pharmacist,
clinically,
but you
okay,
can't enter in orders and stuff towards processing.
right, it
be-
orders to be processed, but I could make notes in the patient.
You make a clinical
Clinical note.
note, like
Yeah.
you've got clinical notes. Like we have pharmacists that do that with immunization therapy and stuff, or go to do a brown bag and they can make clinical notes. But if I'm doing a brown bag and I'm doing it out in front of the grocery store with patients, just like I'm going to sell Boy Scout popcorn or something, I can't mess with their actual prescription profile system to enter in new stuff towards producing prescriptions. I can't process prescriptions.
Right, right, okay.
So for the building, I mean, is there a way that the building could be incorporated in the permit and
That
the?
was my exact
We'd
question.
have to just look and see how they're currently permitted. I just don't know that off the top of my head, and they wouldn't either. We'd have to like pull the file and see what the overall drawing was. And if it's And we've had pharmacies that, I mean, we've had an instance where two pharmacies combined into one and they killed one permit and said, all right, we now put a door in this wall and the whole thing is the pharmacy versus just this half being the pharmacy. So there may be a way to work through it with that. But if it's a separate.
Because it's, yeah, well,
If it's
it's
a-
like one building's here, the other building starts where you, I mean, it's in the same
Yeah,
parking lot.
But
So,
if the buildings aren't connected, it's a different physical address and
Yes.
it has to have a different permit because they're physical
Right.
location specific. We've had that with a couple of compounders that said, hey, I'm getting space limited here, but I've got this other building that, I mean, the only distance between them is there's an alleyway for cars to drive through. And what the board has said is you got to get a permit for that building. And then it gets real complicated with compounding because that permit can't compound stuff and hand it to this permit.
so are you saying you're gonna come have a visit with us so we can figure out?
I'm going to look at our file.
Okay. And see.
This is probably a conversation you'd rather have somewhere like that than on YouTube.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, that sounds perfect.
Sounds like it's two addresses.
Yeah, I think it's going to be two physical addresses, so you'd have to get another permit.
Okay. It just, our only concern is just that we're just running out of room
Oh,
like
yeah.
everybody else.
Well,
And so,
And I have given the board members a thing to discuss at some point today, tomorrow, that this is the exact situation about pharmacists doing order entry if it's not in a permitted facility. So that's where our rule reads right now, but they'll get to discuss if they
okay,
have appetite to change that.
okay.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, do y'all need a quick break? We're gonna take 5 minutes. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
It's good to see you in person.
Yes, absolutely. Me
Uh,
too.
If you guys want to introduce yourselves, and I'll kick off kind of on our side with a quick review unless Ms. Bales interrupts me. Go ahead.
I'm Dr. Tracy Haslow. I'm the psychiatrist at UAMS. I'm the director of the Student Wellness Program, and I did the evaluation for Mr. Moteris. I'm just here in case you guys have any questions for me.
I am James Moteris. I'm a student at UAMS, and I am applying for my pharmacy intern license.
Just as a quick review, you guys saw, and I want to say Motares, and I realize that's different, but Mr. Moteris, at our last informal, at that time, the board was kind of massaging whether or not they're comfortable doing an approval or a denial or something, and kind of came up with, I thought that I might have a way to get a quality evaluation without him having to leave school and everything else. And so with Dr. Haslow, we were able to kind of work that out through the college. I am confident in what we have seen. I can tell you that in my first discussion with her, I think her first statement was, if I get down this and I'm not comfortable, I'm not going to keep going. Like, this isn't just, it's going to happen. It has to meet this. She told us very quickly the aspects that she knew she could deliver directly or things that she would need to farm out. Like, you don't necessarily do direct drug testing. So you use someone else for that, which everybody does that. But did intensive evaluations. You guys have it here. I'm not going to read it all off. Starting with page 4. What'd I miss?
So part of what the board or the informal committee wanted to see was that he had a medical marijuana card.
So he gave that up.
And turned that in, and that's also in your paperwork. First in there.
Another thing, you'll see her other specific summary on page 13. James, how the rest of class is going?
They're going well. So I got a test tomorrow. So got to prepare for that.
Which class?
Pharmaceutical calculations.
Ah,
I like that class a lot. So
I was about to say that, to me, it was like college physics. That always made really good sense in my head. Find the numbers, put in the formula, and it works.
I missed the first part, so Debbie's running this one.
Oh, you didn't need to. I will if I need to.
You were at the informal, I think.
I'm just saying, when we got started, I was in the other room. You mean, okay.
Yeah, that's all you missed.
So how are you doing now?
I'm doing well. Doing well. I think this whole process has been a little bit of weight on my shoulders, but I'm glad that I was transparent with the board and able to be honest. I'm doing well.
Been able to kind of jolt you to the reality of it?
Absolutely.
Maybe perhaps view the professionalism of being a pharmacist through a different light?
Yes, yes, sir. Even though it's been difficult, I think it's taught me a lot of really good lessons and strengthened me as a person, not only in my education and my professionalism, but in my faith as well.
So both alcohol and marijuana were involved over periods of time. No triggers that trigger an urge, or no social use, or
No triggering urges.
You doing okay in your class?
Yes, I'm doing well in my classes. It's a little bit of an adjustment. You know, the level of rigor in pharmacy school is definitely more than I experienced in undergrad, but I think I'm adjusting well. I have a good group of friends and a good support group in school, so.
And did I read that you married or just recently got married?
Yes, I got married on July 2nd.
Okay.
So.
You have new friends now that you're not partaking?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry to interrupt. Yes, I just telling my father the other week that I have some of the best friends that I've ever had in my entire life, and people that I think I'm going to continue to have friendships with for the rest of my life. So I finally feel like I have good people around me that are, you know, a good influence, and they have also told me that I'm a good influence on them. So it's been really rewarding to have them as friends.
A couple things. So you mentioned that you haven't had any triggering issues, but if there were to be one, do you have any sort of like internal system in place or coping mechanism for something that could potentially be a trigger?
Yes, I participate regularly in exercise. Like I said, I have a supportive wife who I feel like I can tell anything to and work through anything with. My friend group, and I also have made an appointment with Angie, which is one of Dr. Haslow's associates, just to try to further delve into any kind of issues that I'm facing or anything.
So that was my next question, was that 3 and 4 of her recommendations were continued caution surrounding alcohol use and then therapy to process the loss of your mother. So are those things that you've put in place?
Yes, yes. Like I said, I have made an appointment with Angie, and I hope to continue those in the future just to try to finalize any kind of worries that I may have in the future about.
Any other discussion from the board?
No, his request is just approval of his intern application.
So you, obviously you're still in college, so are you not, you got rid of your marijuana card, so you're not gonna do that? Or do you drink socially, or have you stopped drinking, or?
As the report states, maybe a few times a month, 2 to 3, but never more than 2 drinks. I really have an adverse, not necessarily reaction, but I just do not enjoy consuming alcohol. And I've never consumed more than 6 drinks in my entire life in one sitting. So have I had drinks like when my father comes into town or before our board meeting last time my sister had come into town? Yes, but that's very irregular. So, and in fact, we actually had a get together after our white coat ceremony. And I didn't have a drop of alcohol and it was at a bar. I just went to see my friends. So.
They work really well for you, not even, I mean, you can have. But I know you're gonna be around it, so that's why I'm asking.
So if there's no further discussion, is there a motion to be made?
Make a motion that we approve this application.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Davenport made the motion. We grant his internship application and Dr. Mack second. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, they're going to approve you. They're sign off on it now. We'll take it front. Dr. Haslow, thank you for coming today. And for those of you that don't know, and I will probably butcher this, but her role with UAMS is specifically helping to serve students within the different colleges at UAMS for any, potential mental health needs or anything else. So I greatly appreciate your availability and working with us, because not only did it help us, but also helped Mr. Motes to be able to continue his educational pathway instead of having to step out for a period of time. So thank you so much and great report.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
Absolutely. Got to watch it now. We're going to call you with some more, but
I'm happy.
that's a good thing.
Maybe they just did this before.
Did the 2:30?
He is out of class at the moment and trying to study, and so come in, we can just give him a. I'll say, Doctor. Who'd you bring us, Ashley?
Risha Archie.
Number 7.
This is informal.
All right. Ms. Archie, you want to introduce yourself to us, and I'll tell you who all you're talking to and just a little bit about this procedure.
I'm hard of hearing, so I'm like, my hearing aids had battery died before I got in here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you need me to introduce myself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm Risha Archie. I applied for a pharmacy technician license a few months ago after I completed the program of the at AECC Career College over there, and my application came back about the past charges I had when I was a teenager that I put on here about a misdemeanor and a felony when I was 19. So I provided my statement here to you all about the incidents.
Okay. So in just a moment, the board members will have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm dying.
But I want to tell you who you're talking to. And if you can't hear me, I know I'm loud, but I also know if you have an issue with your hearing aids, it might still be tough. So on this side of the table, we're board staff members here that work here. Myself, Dr. McCrady's our assistant director, Ms. Bales is our attorney. And then these are board members on this side. They're decision makers today. What we usually do is we're calling this informal because we didn't send you an order notice for a hearing. We're not swearing you in as a witness. But the biggest thing for you is after this conversation that we'll have, the board members will have some questions for you. And at some point, they're going to make a decision. It could be to approve your application or deny your application or to table it at this time. But whatever they come up with, you could either agree or disagree with.
Yes,
And if you agree with it, we go forth with whatever they've said. If you disagree, it's your chance to ask for a hearing at a later date or to say, you forget this and it won't go away. So I always ask, do you have any questions about how the process works?
sir. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to let Ms. Bales give a brief overview and then they'll have some questions for you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, and we brought Miss Archie in for an informal conference today on her pharmacy technician application. She did not disclose that there were any incidents of arrest in her past, but when we did the background check, a couple of things came up. There was an arrest on October 3rd, 2010 by the El Dorado Police Department for aggravated assault, a D felony. We don't have any documents from the court. We do have a Court Connect database that indicates the charges weren't prosecuted. She was arrested again on April 7, 2011 for harassing communications, an A misdemeanor, and battery in the 3rd degree, an A class misdemeanor. Again, no documents were from the court, but we have a database entry that said those charges were dropped null prost. But in her statement, Ms. Archie said that she completed probation and community service. So I was going to ask her some questions about that, but that's the reason that Ms. Archie is here on her technician registration application.
Did you say you were going to ask her some questions related to that?
If I can, yeah, Ms. Archie. So you said in your statement that you did complete probation and community service.
It was like a community stage where we just,
Okay, but let me ask you a question. Was that court ordered?
No, I volunteered to do that.
And why did you do that?
Because I just wanted to, didn't want them to, think that incident was, a bad judgment of me. So I was willing to do community service or anything at the time to, weed off a bad reputation because, I was a child then, well, teenager legal adult then, but my behavior, and I just felt like there was something I could do in a process of sense, of that situation.
Okay. And so you did that on your own. No judge told you to go do that.
Ma'am.
You did that on your own and no judge told you had to do that?
No, the judge just dismissed it.
Okay. But then you also said that you completed probation and I wasn't sure what charge that was.
Like a center. I can't describe what it was because it's so long ago, but it was like a center, like where you just sign in, just talk about things, do community service, talk about behaviors like anger and stuff like that. And I just did that. I had some
Did you volunteer to do that or did a judge tell you to do that?
They suggested it if I wanted to do it, and I just did it.
Okay. And do you remember which charge that was that you did all that? Like you had a felony aggravated assault that got dropped.
That incident.
Well, no, let me ask you a question about that.
Okay.
So when you had that was like October of 2010. Did you do this volunteer work for that?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Then you had another one in 2011, harassing communications and a battery. Did you do that probation?
I had a fight with a girl, but the harassing communication, that was totally lost. She came to my aunt's house.
Right. But let me ask you this. So did you do community service for that?
I had arrested for that, but I didn't do any community service or anything like that.
Okay. Now, the person that is involved in the aggravated assault, is that the same person that was involved in the battery?
The person who was involved, that was a girl who was dating at my time. We had the same child's father.
Okay. So she was an issue in both of those arrests?
She made a false report.
Okay. And she did that twice?
Ma'am.
Did she do that 2 times?
Did she do it 2 times?
Yeah. So you had aggravated assault?
No, once.
Okay. So who was involved in the aggravated assault?
Another girl.
Another girl.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. So, but both of those charges were dropped. The judge didn't order you to do anything, but you voluntarily did some.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I had.
All right, so this all happened 13, 14 years ago?
I can't hear you that well.
Okay, so it's been a while though.
Speak up, she can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So it's been, so this was 2010, 2011. So 13 or 14 years ago.
Yes, sir.
This happened. Have you had any trouble of any kind since then?
No, sir. I graduated 2022 with my associates general studies, and I'm currently a nursing student.
All right, and so you did some community service, although her question was, why would you be doing these things if you weren't told to do so? But you're saying that you voluntarily did community service.
Yes, and why? I'm not understanding that question.
Really, the question was that she was getting at was, why would you be doing community service?
I just wanted to do, punish myself for the behavior because like I said, me and the girl did have a fight. But the harassment communication, which she did, that was totally lie because she came to where I am and instigated the fight.
Okay. So you haven't had any issues though of recent? Okay. Susan?
Well, the Arkansas Lottery to hook them up to the buttons here. Yeah, very good. Miss Archie, the thing that concerns me, you're wanting to be a pharmacy tech.
Okay.
And pharmacy techs have to read prescriptions and fill prescriptions and so forth, and they have to be concerned with detail.
Okay.
Now, in your application, you're asked a question that includes, have you ever been arrested for anything?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Now, you clearly were arrested. I understand you can argue that when the prosecutor Noel Prost dropped the charges against you, that didn't count and all. I understand that. But one thing I would really urge you to do as you go forward, if you go forward as a pharmacy tech, is to pay a lot more attention to the details.
Yes, sir.
And if you don't understand what something means, like what it meant when they asked, have you ever been arrested? Does this apply to that or what? You need to ask questions and be very precise with regard to details, because that's what people are counting on you for your job.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So why do you want to be a pharmacy technician?
It was something new to me. It was interesting, like when I read about it, and considering that I was on break from nursing school, I wanted to just get a little based on pharmacy because pharmacology is a big thing in nursing school too. So I want to get a better understanding of it so I can also succeed in nursing. So that's why I entered.
Are you in nursing school or just have an interest in nursing?
I'm in nursing school.
Oh, you're in nursing school now. Okay. Do you have a job in mind or lined up for pharmacy work, or you just?
I want to be a pharmacy technician, where I want to do like PRN while I'm in nursing school.
Any other board discussion? What's the will of the board?
I'll make a motion that we grant her technician license.
Okay, we have a motion to grant her license. There's a second by Mr. Simpson. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Archie, you'll get your pharmacy technician license today.
Okay.
And how about you all?
So, Ms. Brownley, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing
Or
fine. How about you?
Afternoon, actually. The day has escaped me. So I'm just going to take a couple things about who you're talking to in this procedure today. I'm John Kirtley. I'm the Director of the Board of Pharmacy. And on this side, Dr. Brenda McCready and Ms. Ashley Bales are also employees here at the Board of Pharmacy with me. On the other side, we have 6 of our pharmacy board members who are decision makers here today with your application. Here in a moment, I'll turn it over to Ms. Bales to tell us what came back in your application. We saw that you had submitted one and that you told us nothing would come back on it, but I think we had some issues with that. But the most important thing is that you understand after they ask you some questions about it, they're going to come up with some suggestion for what they want to do with your application. It could be to approve it, to deny it, to say they'll reconsider it at some future date. But whatever they come up with, you could either agree or disagree with. If you agree with it, we go forth with whatever it is that they've asked us to do. If you disagree, you can request to have a formal hearing before the board at a later date, which is just a little bit more formal than this, meaning we'd have a hearing officer and a court reporter. We swear everybody in. It's a lot more like going to court. Or you could kind of just say, forget this and walk away. But that's the most important thing is you get to make that decision. The biggest thing is, do you understand why you're here today?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about how this works?
No, I talked to a few of my people that's in the pharmacy and asked them kind of questions.
Okay.
about it.
Well, realizing you've never sat in that chair, if you have any questions about how it's going at any point, get our attention and ask us any questions that you've got.
Okay, gotcha.
Ms. Bales?
We brought Ms. Brownley in to the board on her pharmacy technician registration application due to some criminal history. She did not disclose on her application that she had ever had any arrests, but when her background came back, there were 3 different incidents. The first one's from 2005, was a violation of a hot check law. She was found guilty of that and sentenced to fine and court cost. Then in March of 2010, she was charged with failure to vacate after notice. So that would be not paying rent and then not vacating the property, which is a criminal act. She pled guilty and was given a fine on that case. And then on April 18, 2018, she was arrested for driving on suspended driver's license following too close an obstruction of governmental operations. She pled no contest to those and was sentenced to fines and court costs on that. And all of those cases have been taken care of as far as court obligations.
Is there a statement?
13.
On page, it's a picture, it's on page 13. I have a front line.
I found it. Hey, Ms. Brownley, I know you provided a statement and this incident seemed to be isolated over a long period of time, but maybe just in your own words, kind of share with us what was going on each of those times.
Okay, the first one was, it was my check. At that time, like 2005 was like a difficult time. I spent $30 over. It cost me $300. So I learned from that lesson. I don't fool with checks at all anymore. The 2010 incident, another with me being the only provider, and I didn't leave that property when I was told to. So I ended up having to pay double for that as well. The one for the license, I was following too close. I was speeding and following too close. So that's what I got a ticket for that last one.
What was the obstruction of governmental operations?
I have no idea. None.
Usually that's like if they pull you over and they ask you your name or your date of birth and you don't give them that information, or you give them the information of someone else. Was there anything like that?
No, but I had, not on this one.
Not on this one.
No, because I had previously, I went to court for this as well with another incident. It should be in here too. I used my sister's name, so I ended up having to go to court.
Okay.
go to court, and he had my sister there, and he had, I ended up doing 3 days. He gave me 3 days and fines for that, and they ended up paying me my money back because he was like, I wasn't supposed to fine you and give you, time.
Right.
So that was clear, but he definitely had my sister there and asked her, which that was wrong.
Why'd
It was wrong.
you use her name?
My license was suspended. I
Okay.
knew it was suspended, and I was driving and thinking I was gonna get stopped.
Okay.
And I did, and I took the heat for that one. I paid the cost and everything.
So I know you said you talked to some of your pharmacy friends to kind of get a feel for what today
What
would
was
be like.
gonna, kind of take place in here. My daughter is a pharm tech too, and her brother is going to be a pharmacist. My son is RN, so I kind of, because I did this before, but I hadn't did a pharma hearing, but I got my pharmacy tech license in Tennessee in 2014, 2015. I just didn't do anything with them because at that time I had kids and I was the only one. One of my son had came down with walking pneumonia, so I could not pursue my pharmacy career with that. So, when my daughter went to school for the AECC program and she started working with pharma, I was like, well, that's a good thing. Maybe I can try that one again. It's never too late. So that's why, and I didn't click the button because I thought it was for felons. When they asked you if you would have something to come back on your record or anything like that, I thought it was strictly for like if you had a felon or something. So I did not.
What, I'm sorry.
You know how, your paperwork, when they ask you if you have anything on your record, I was thinking it was just like if you have a felon. I never, I don't have any felons or anything like that. So that's why I didn't, click, yes, something would come back. I was under the impression, just like these charges, wasn't gonna do anything, but I didn't know until now.
But it really says, have you ever been arrested for?
Oh, he took, because I used my sister's name. I used my sister's name. It was falsifying information. I used my sister's name and he ended up giving me 3 days for that.
But that's arrested, so you would have to mark yes. That's kind of what we're getting.
It was so long ago. I promise you, I didn't even think to even put that down because it wasn't anything I was trying to hide because anytime I go for a job and they pull my records, it's there. Like every time. I didn't work for Arkansas Medicaid, it's there. I just didn't think it was, a big thing, I didn't know. I know now.
You have a pharmacy in mind that you're wanting to work for or just trying to get your license first?
UAMS outpatient seems to be a good one. My daughter works at Walgreens and she loves her pharmacy. So somewhere between there, something like that. I prefer like outpatient though.
Would have any other discussion? Simpson?
All right. Ms. Brownley.
Yes, sir.
My major concern in looking at this is you want to be a pharmacy tech.
Mm-hmm.
And pharmacy techs have to be detail oriented.
Mm-hmm.
When a physician writes a prescription, you've got to read the prescription and make sure what it is and not assume that it says something that you're not sure of. And it does concern me going forward that you've got to pay attention to details and ask questions when something isn't clear.
Right.
You can't afford to make the kind of mistake in handling a patient's drugs that you made in filling out this application form.
Right. That's I totally understand that because that right there could be dangerous. Misreading a prescription or sending it in the wrong, giving somebody the wrong medicine. That's definitely dangerous. And I wouldn't want that because I wouldn't want that done to me. Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion?
What type of work are you doing right now?
Right now, I'm not. I've been in hospitality for like 15 plus years. I enjoy meeting and talking to different people. So Hospitality has been my thing. I haven't been working because I just had a total hysterectomy at the beginning of the year and gallbladder removal. So I haven't been working this year.
Simpson?
You're ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
In the matter of Henrye Brownley's application for pharmacy technician, I move that we approve the application.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Simpson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Dr. Newsom, second. So all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
It's all been pushing the button.
Worn out.
Yeah, work one out here.
You can hook that button up to the bottom. Everybody's seen.
Slot machine.
Also got to play food.
You do over, under on every.
My mother's favorite.
What's that?
One, two, three, one.
Did it turn on?
Yeah.
There we go. Is it Alana?
Alana
Alana, and how do you pronounce your last name?
Bozier.
Bouger? All right. Alana, my name is John Kirtley. I'm the Director of the Board of Pharmacy, and all of us are pulling up your file on our little documents. Just want to tell you a couple of things about this process. First of all, we got an application from you for pharmacy technician registration, and you did let us know that something was going to come back. So thank you for letting us know up front.
Yes.
With that, what we generally do is on this side, we're staff members, so we'll present just a quick overview to the board members who are the decision makers today on your application, what is there. Then they'll have some questions for you about it. And at some point, they're going to come up with a suggested decision. Could be to approve your application, could be to deny your application, could be to table it and consider it at a future date. Whatever they come up with, you can either agree or disagree with. If you agree with it, then we go forth with whatever they've asked us to do. If you disagree, it's kind of your chance to either say, you know, number one, I would like to have an appeal and a formal hearing before the board at a later date, which is basically these members. We've got one more that would generally be here where you get sworn in under oath. We have a hearing officer, court order, and basically would have a very similar discussion to what we do today, just in a more formal manner. Or you can say, forget this and walk away from being a technician. But once again, the important thing is you get to make that choice. So always ask, do you know why you're here?
Sir.
Do you have any questions about how this works?
No, sir.
I realize you've never been in that chair before, and at some point you might have a question. If you do, by all means, get our attention and ask us any questions you've got.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bales?
We brought Ms. Bozier in on her pharmacy technician registration application due to some things that came up on her background check. She did disclose that there would be some things. There's two incidents. The first one was an arrest or charge from January 11th, 2020. She was shoplifting from Walmart where she worked. According to her statement, she didn't scan all of her items when self-checking. She went to court and pled guilty to theft of property, Class A misdemeanor on February 3rd of 2020. She was sentenced to fine and court costs, community service, a shoplifter's course, and 6 months probation. She complied with all the court orders, and then the charge was dismissed on March 15th, 2021. There was another arrest, March 20th, 2023 for terroristic threatening in the second degree, a Class A misdemeanor. And according to her statement, she threatened a woman who was with her significant other. She entered a plea of no contest on May 1st, 2023. She was sentenced to fine and court cost and 1 year no contact order with the victim. And according to the record she presented, she's paid all of her fines and court obligations.
So Alana, thank you for being honest on your application that we would expect to see something come back. Also read your statement, but if you could just share with us in your own words, what was going on around those times?
Well, for the first one, I was young. There's not an excuse for it, but I was in a time of need. I had just found out that I was pregnant with my second child. I hadn't been working at Walmart very long. Like it's stated in here, I did not scan everything whenever I was doing the self-checkout, so.
Okay. And tell us about the second time.
And the second one, I did not realize that this was against the woman, because in my court thing is actually against the man. But in all honesty, I was in an abusive relationship at the time with him. Came in, walked in my house, found him and her in my room. I called the police over there, of course, whenever they got there, after altercations has already been going on. Some more altercations was going on while the police was there. I looked him in the face and told him that I was gonna beat his ASS, and we continued for there, and I got arrested, so.
So that statement was what constituted a terroristic threat.
Correct.
Okay. So why do you want to be a pharmacy technician?
Well, I work at Walgreens right now. I've been there for a year. Not only money-wise, they're offering me, but found it interesting. I've got to kind of see what they do back there. Caught my attention. Told them that I was interested, and they asked me if I wanted to move up in my position that I'm in now, which I said yes, of course. Without me getting, or with me moving up in that position, I have to obtain my tech license as well.
So are you actually interested in moving into the pharmacy? Or I know at Walgreens, they have their store managers and whatnot also become licensed.
Correct. I'm actually planned on moving into the pharmacy.
Okay.
If not moving into the pharmacy, I'd be working both the front end and pharmacy as well.
Okay. And would this be at the location where you're currently working now?
Yes, sir.
Board have any other discussion? Not, is there a motion to be made?
I'll make it. Do we grant her technician license?
Have a motion, is there a second? All right, motion by Dr. Newsom, second by Dr. Davenport. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Yep.
Wasn't even given this. I didn't find that this was even in there. And which I'm not even in the same town as them anymore. I just live in Benton and they reside in Malvern.
I think it needs to be.
It is, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, I apologize.
Video.
Um,
I think John could record it.
we realized that question asked. I wonder if it's the end, we have a little statement that says, ever. I know we have it in there.
I think after 20 years of watching it, it doesn't matter what you ask, people will misunderstand it at convenience, especially if it means, no, I mean,
Yes.
I don't think it matters. I think you have a whole bunch of people that are going to answer no, thinking that's not going to show up.
Ms. Rollins,
Yes.
how are you today?
How are you guys?
So, Ms. Romes, I'm John Kirtley. I'm the Director of the Board of Pharmacy. And on this side of the table, we are all staff members here at the board. On the other side, we have 6 of our pharmacy board members who are decision makers here today. I see that you did fill out a pharmacy technician application, and I believe you told us up front, something's going to pop back on this, which is kind of why we're here today. Just want to tell you a little bit about this procedurally. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to our legal counsel to give an overview of whatever was on your background check, and then the board members are going to want to have some questions for you about that. At the end of some discussion, they're going to come up with what their suggestion for action is, either to approve your application, to deny your application, to say they'll reconsider it in some length of time. We don't know what they're going to come up with until they do. The most important thing is you can either agree or disagree with it. If they say something and you like it and you want to agree to it, that's fine. We just go forth with it. If it's something you do not agree with, like if they said they would vote to deny it and you didn't like it, you could either say, forget this and walk away, or you could request a formal hearing before the board, these members, plus the one that's missing at a future date. Formal hearing, just a little bit more formal. We swear everybody in as witnesses, have a court reporter and a hearing officer, and it just feels a little bit more like going to court than just us having a conversation. So I always ask 2 things. Do you know why you're here today?
Yes.
What questions do you have about how the process works?
I'm really don't know. I'm just here to answer any questions that need to be answered.
Okay. I realize you've never been in that chair before. During this, if you've got a question about something that's going on, by all means, get our attention and we'll do our best to help answer any questions you've got.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Vales?
Brought Ms. Romes in on her pharmacy technician registration application. She did disclose that there would be arrests on her background. The first one was from 2016. She was arrested for 2 counts of domestic battery in the 3rd degree, Class A misdemeanors. She was sentenced to 12 months probation, fine and court costs, and no contact with the victim. She was again arrested on December 28, 2018 for a DUI with accident, a battery 2nd degree D felony, a criminal mischief, 3 counts of that. That's a Class A misdemeanor, and refusal to submit to a breathalyzer. She was sentenced on August 24, 2020 to 5 years probation, fine and court costs, 45 days in the Pulaski County Jail to be completed on weekends and alcohol classes. On this last charge, it looks like she's done everything, but still she's set to be on probation till August 24th of 2025, if my math is correct.
I got something to say if I'm able. Okay.
Yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
All right, I've just had an opportunity to read your statement that you made. Perhaps you could just share with us what was going on, particularly this last time.
The last time was actually a wreck that I had. That's why it was charged with, I think, like 4 different accounts. I actually did everything that I was supposed to. My classes, I did the weekend jail, I paid my probation. I did all of that within the 1 year. And they did go ahead and approve my early termination of probation. So that case is closed. I'm not on any probation anymore. Yeah, that's actually about it. And I just went, I think it was on the 19th of September when I went, and they granted me early probation release.
Information about that, Ms. Bales?
No, it happened the 19th of last month.
Yes, I
Yeah,
believe.
so I don't have that. If it's been terminated, I think there was something in here about a request, but I don't have the
So
result.
getting, in the process of getting my record expunged as
You have
well. Well, I have the information on here.
Okay.
I don't.
Can I ask a
I-
question?
I'll wait.
Or, yes, please.
So what happened with the wreck?
With the reg,
Mm-hmm.
it was,
I had drunk before I actually got in the car and had the accident, and that's what accumulated all those charges because of
So
that.
what was the accident? Was there another person involved or?
It was, I think it was 3 other vehicles.
Okay, so that's the criminal mischief, maybe?
Yeah.
Did anybody get hurt? There's a battery second charge
I
that,
believe it was one lady, it was one lady on here, I think she was like in,
I don't know if it's on the court papers. I don't have a
yeah,
police
it's on
report.
here. That's what I'm looking at, but yeah, she was hurt a little bit, yeah, she had to go to the hospital.
Okay.
Did you flee the scene or something or?
No, I didn't flee this scene, it was, no, I never left the scene.
But you didn't take a breathalyzer
No.
and blow in the machine?
So do you have problems with alcohol?
No, sir.
Okay.
It was that at that time I was going through a divorce, and I guess that was my way of trying to cope with the situation. But no, I don't have a drinking problem.
What do you do currently?
I'm in-home health caregiver.
Okay. So are you licensed as like a CNA or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I get certifications. They have training like every 3 months or so that I have to do training, and I get a certification for that.
Okay. So is that a certification issued by the state?
It's for the classes that I take. It's through the job that I work for through Miracle Hands. And I'm not sure how it works, but every time I finish the training, I get a certificate from it.
Okay. So what makes you want to be a technician?
Just the different experience. I wanted to try to do something different.
Did you have somewhere in mind in particular or?
I thought about compounding, but no, I don't know anywhere in particular that I would want to go.
Board have any other questions for this lady?
I can show you.
Generally, we don't approve a license if there's still outstanding probation, right?
That's right. I think that's what she's trying to show Ms. Vales.
I think the lady name is Tina Lee. That's in the process of getting my record expunged. Right here. No. It was September 17th, September 12th. Yeah. Yeah, well, it was electronic September.
Does have an order that says she was terminated September 17th and 24th.
So that sets the probation issue aside. Any other thoughts from the board?
It appears that she has everything cleared with the law. And with that being said, I would approve her to have a pharmacy, a technician permit.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion by Dr. Newsom, second by Dr. Mack. Unless there's any further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Guys, carry.
Unless you don't want to agree with that.
I agree.
Okay, good luck with your career.
Thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate that. Do I need to show you?
Yeah, what?
That all you have today? I have today. Microphone. We handed you guys out this packet. You can look at it tonight. We can talk about it tomorrow. We'll have Dr. Jolly with us tomorrow as well. Anything else you guys need?
So you're just wanting us to read these two things you marked, or?
Well, we're going to discuss them to see if the board has an appetite to change the offsite order retail rule to be more similar to hospital, where you would allow a pharmacist to do offsite order entry. So we could leave it where you can do it from an approved pharmacy within the state, and that would include pharmacists and technicians and interns. But we've had a request that if it's an out-of-state entity or not in a pharmacy or whatever it is, that they could seek approval to do it as pharmacist for a facility or something. It's a big change. That's why I said I can give you all that and y'all can look at it and think on it overnight. I can get you another one.
What time it's starting tomorrow?
9 o'clock in the morning.
Unless
It'll be a busy one.
opposed, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? See you tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.